Hello. Yes, I changed my hair. And I honestly spent about 20 minutes trying to think of a good joke to make about the fact that I changed my hair. And I couldn't come up with one. So yeah, I changed my hair. The ends are more pink than the top because this had been bleached, but this top part was my natural color, and so it had not been treated, so it was not only darker, but it wasn't as porous because it hadn't been dyed ever. So when I put this color over it, this is what I got. I also cut my bangs, obviously, myself. I haven't had bangs in like 4 years, so if I play with them a lot, it's because I'm just not used to like the feeling of having bangs. And they get like a little bit in my face because they're like a little bit too long. So I'm gonna cut them again eventually. But I used the Colorista, like the L'Oreal Colorista color, which is supposed to come out in like, they say like 48 washes. So for me, that's about 4 to 6 weeks. Eventually I'll go back to blonde, but the bangs, obviously a little bit more permanent than 4 to 6 weeks. Okay, enough about my hair, because that's not exactly why you are coming to this video. Because if you read the title of the video, you're probably like, I want to know more about world building. Shut up about your hair. So I'm going to do that for you. Don't you worry. So like the title of the video suggests, this is going to be the 3rd video in my world building series. And like I promised a few weeks ago when I made the first video, that was an overview of world building. I'm going to go into a bunch of the things that I talked about there in more depth. And today I'm going to be talking about races, both like physical races and magical races, beings, creatures, that sort of thing. So if you're interested, keep watching. So first thing I'm going to address is races, and I said this in my overview of world building video, but newsflash, if you write fantasy and sci-fi, that doesn't give you a free pass not to include people of color in your novel. So I don't think that it does. So I've seen the trend of not including people of color in fantasy, particularly high fantasy, a lot, and I know where and why it stems from, but I'm here to tell you that it's not an excuse and you can't keep doing it. So for those of you who feel like you are in the dark, this trend of only including white people for the most part in your book stems, honestly, quite frankly, from Tolkien. And I love Lord of the Rings, I love Tolkien as an author, but he included like 2 women. 2.5 of you include Arwen, and she has an incredibly small role in the novels. And then he doesn't include anybody of color except for the humans who side with the villains, and then the orcs are like low-key supposed to be black. So yeah, I love Lord of the Rings, but it's really racist, and you can make the excuse that it was from its time all you want and whatever. Like I said, I love Lord of the Rings, but that doesn't give you an excuse to write that way because you're not writing in the 40s, 50s, 60s, right? You're writing now in 2018 or onward. So like, yeah, it's not an excuse. I don't want to hear it anymore. And I don't want to make this into a whole long video about the reasons why you need to have diversity in fiction. There's a really good video by Jenna Moreci. I'll link it in my description box. If you have somehow not already heard of her and you haven't seen that video, then go check it out. It's a great video about why you need diversity and how to properly write it. But I'm just here to quickly sum it up for you. You have to have people of multiple races. You have to have representation in your novels. However, from a world building standpoint, you should really think of your races as, if you are creating a whole new world, right? If you are writing high fantasy instead of middle fantasy, which is what I personally write. So my novel is set in America and there is magic within the world we live in, which is middle fantasy like Harry Potter. So obviously I have to include people with different who look different, act different, that sort of thing, because that's the nature of America. But if you are writing a whole new world, you're creating something completely separate from Earth, then you probably should consider continents or countries. And newsflash, people across those countries and continents are not going to look the same. You can make them look however you want, but you have to have this diversity of race. It's just what's normal. Different climates, different cultures will naturally arise different appearances, because if you have different climates across the world and countries that are, for centuries were at war with each other, then if there was no sort of crossing of DNA for centuries, then obviously different appearances are going to crop up related to different climates. And so at some point, before travel was viable in your world, if it is now, then at some point there was such an isolation that it only makes sense for there to have been people who look different from one another. So in world building, if you're creating a whole new world, then you have to take into account the realism factor that people, no matter what, are not going to look the same across a whole continent or a whole globe. And you have to put that in there if you want anybody to believe what you wrote. Another thing I'm going to just quickly touch on, because I touched on it in the first video and there's not a whole lot for me to say about this in particular, is the existence of magical beings and creatures. So even if you have never read or watched Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, now that that's a disappointing movie franchise, you, through cultural osmosis, are probably aware that he has different races of magical beings, that they're all white, but you know what I'm saying? There's orcs and elves and men and dwarves and hobbits, so on and so forth, but there's also dragons, which are magical creatures, and that sort of thing. So if you're creating a separate world, like, Middle Earth or Westeros, then you have to consider, what kind of beings are there? So, for example, in Westeros, there's the White Walkers. Of course, you have to think about things like magical creatures, right? Do they have dogs and cats and chickens, or do they have dragons, or both, or some creatures you made up? Do you want to put those in there? Adding what kind of creatures people eat and raise as pets if they are not set in Earth is really important to creating something realistic, because in most cultures people have some kind of pet. Have fun with it. Make some good world building. Include people of other races. I believe in you. Okay, that is all for today's video. I hope you liked this video. I hope you include diversity in your novel. If you liked this video, you can subscribe down below. It's somewhere along here, and you can ring that bell to be notified when I post, if that interests you whatsoever. And, you liked this and you were like, I subscribed, but I want more content. I need to see your beautiful pink hair all the time. Well, lucky for you, I have a bunch of social media, and I tweet a lot. I'm going to just put my social media up, here, and then in the description box down below. That's all I got for you guys today. And seriously, include people of color in your book. Okay, bye!